Welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the glamorous, fiercely competitive, and emotionally turbulent world of Los Angeles fashion. Today is a fantastic day to unpack the explosive drama awaiting us, as the shifting tides of power and passion threaten to pull our favorite characters under. Let us jump right into the heart of the action and explore the shattered alliances and hidden secrets that will define the upcoming episodes. Melissa Dillon finds herself trapped in a suffocating nightmare, her pulse pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs as the chilling identity of her tormentor is finally unmasked. The shadowy figure who has been relentlessly stalking her, leaving her in a constant state of paralyzing paranoia with his disguised voice and cryptic threats, steps into the unforgiving light of the Forrester Creations design room. The sheer shock of this revelation sends a visceral wave of nausea washing over her, as the ghosts of her past violently collide with the fragile sanctuary she has managed to build for herself in Los Angeles. The man standing before her, wearing a knowing, sinister smirk, is none other than Remy Price. For Melissa, this is not just a jump scare. It is the materialization of her deepest anxieties, a terrifying reminder that she can never truly outrun the debts she has incurred in her desperate bid for survival. The psychological weight of Remy Price's presence in the Forrester building cannot be overstated. Remy is not merely an acquaintance or a random figure from her history. He is the architect of her current stability, the man who pulled the necessary strings to secure her the art teacher job that originally kept her from drowning in poverty. In the ruthless ecosystem of their shared past, a favor of that magnitude is never granted without an expectation of return. If Remy were simply a normal, well-adjusted cousin or an old friend, Melissa could perhaps navigate this reunion with grace, offering financial compensation or a heartfelt thank you. But Remy operates on a completely different moral frequency. His arrival signals the collection of a debt that cannot be paid in currency, but rather in compliance, complicity, and moral compromise. As the tension in the room thickens, Remy begins to lay out the terms of his sinister quid pro quo arrangement, cornering Melissa into a desperate situation where her very livelihood hangs in the balance. He makes it abundantly clear that he expects to be handsomely rewarded for his past generosity, and his demands stretch far beyond the realm of professional courtesy. Melissa is acutely aware of the dark, unsavory elements of Remy's background. If the Forrester family, with their strict adherence to public image and corporate prestige, were to discover the truth about her connection to Remy and the dubious circumstances surrounding her past employment, she would be unceremoniously stripped of her job. The paralyzing fear of homelessness, of returning to the cold, unforgiving reality of living in her car, grips Melissa's heart like a vice, forcing her to entertain the unthinkable. It becomes increasingly evident that Remy is preparing to order Melissa to do his dirty work, leveraging her vulnerability to further his own chaotic agenda. The insidious nature of his blackmail places Melissa in an agonizing ethical dilemma. She is being forced to choose between preserving her hard-won stability and participating in a scheme that could devastate the people she has come to care about. Furthermore, the underlying motivations driving Remy's sudden reappearance seem deeply entangled with the romantic entanglements of the Forrester elite. Despite his professed feelings for Deke Sharp, it appears that Remy has never truly moved on from his lingering obsession with Electra Forrester. His demands on Melissa are likely a calculated maneuver to infiltrate Electra's orbit, using Melissa as an unwilling pawn in a twisted game of emotional manipulation and sabotage. Meanwhile, the romantic battlefield surrounding Electra Forrester is becoming increasingly treacherous, heavily influenced by the overzealous and potentially dangerous interventions of R.J. Forrester. R.J. has firmly positioned himself as Electra's ultimate protector, taking a solemn, unwavering vow to shield her from any perceived threats. In his mind, he is the valiant White Knight, the only man capable of providing Electra with the safety and devotion she so desperately deserves. However, RJ's perception of danger is deeply flawed and entirely self-serving. He has convinced himself, and is actively trying to convince Electra, that while Spencer is the primary villain in her narrative, a toxic presence that must be eradicated at all costs. This distorted narrative completely ignores the fundamental truth of Will and Electra's complex dynamic. While Spencer has undoubtedly made his fair share of foolish mistakes, allowing his insecurities and the manipulative interference of others to fracture their bond, his love for Electra remains profoundly genuine. Will's heart is completely tethered to hers, and his desperate, agonizing wait for her to make a final romantic choice is a testament to the depth of his devotion. He is not a malicious predator seeking to cause her pain. He is a flawed young man desperately trying to rebuild a shattered romance. Yet, RJ refuses to acknowledge this reality, choosing instead to weaponize Will's past errors to elevate his own status in Electra's eyes. RJ's promise of protection is rapidly morphing into a suffocating cage. By aggressively working to keep Electra away from Will, RJ is not safeguarding her heart. He is isolating her, manipulating her vulnerability to ensure that he remains the only viable option for her affection. His actions cross the line from genuine care into coercive control. The bitter irony of this situation is that while RJ is hyper-focused on eliminating Will from the equation, he is entirely blind to the very real, tangible danger lurking within the walls of Forrester Creations. By failing to recognize the sinister threat posed by Remy Price and the forced sabotage he is demanding from Melissa Dillon, RJ is leaving Electra exposed to a far more devastating emotional catastrophe. His overprotective hubris may ultimately be the very thing that shatters the woman he claims to love. Across the sprawling corporate campus of Forrester Creations, an entirely different, yet equally destructive, war is reaching its absolute boiling point. The executive suite is vibrating with the suppressed rage of a rivalry that has spanned generations, as Hope Logan Spencer finally collides with the immovable wall of Steffy Forrester Finnegan's authority. For years, Hope has poured her soul, her creativity, and her unwavering moral compass into building the hope for the future brand. It is not merely a fashion line to her. It is a manifestation of her identity, a platform for her values, and her definitive legacy within the company. Yet, once again, Steffi has callously decided to pause the HFTF line, unilaterally dictating that the company's entire focus and financial resources must be diverted to prioritize Eric Forster's couture collection. When Steffi delivers this devastating blow, she attempts to cloak her decision in the sterile, unfeeling language of corporate strategy. She coldly insists that pausing the line is strictly a business decision, a necessary sacrifice for the greater good of Forrester Creations. But to Hope, the brunette executive's words are laced with condescension and historical resentment. Hope is acutely aware that her line is the only one consistently subjected to these abrupt, humiliating halts. She rightfully perceives Steffi's actions not as a strategic necessity, but as a targeted, intentional stalling tactic designed to marginalize her influence and diminish the Logan presence within the Forrester empire. The professional disrespect is a thinly veiled personal attack, and Hope's internal devastation is rapidly transforming into a radicalized, unquenchable fury. Steffi's handling of the situation is characterized by a breathtaking level of executive hubris. When confronted by a visibly shattered and furious Hope, Steffi does not offer empathy or a collaborative solution. Instead, she issues a chilling, dismissive challenge. By looking Hope in the eye and asking, "Or what?" Steffi essentially dares Hope to retaliate, firmly believing that the Logan heiress is entirely powerless, a captive employee with no viable alternatives. Steffi is operating under the dangerous assumption that Forrester Creations is the only kingdom in Los Angeles, and that Hope is forever bound to its throne regardless of how poorly she is treated. This arrogant miscalculation blinds Steffi to the seismic shifts occurring just beyond the walls of her office. What Steffi fails to realize is that Hope is no longer the passive, accommodating woman she once was. The constant marginalization has pushed her to her absolute breaking point, and she is secretly armed with a weapon that could fundamentally cripple the Forrester enterprise. Liam Spencer, demonstrating a ruthless strategic acumen that few anticipated, has already laid the groundwork for Hope's defection. He has secured a prominent, highly lucrative position for Hope at Katie Logan's newly launched, wildly successful fashion house. This is not just a job offer. It is a masterstroke of corporate warfare, a solution that perfectly resolves Katie's desperate need for a visionary designer while simultaneously offering Hope the respect, creative freedom, and platform she has been systematically denied by Steffi. During their tense confrontation on Monday, Hope stood on the precipice of revealing this explosive secret. The words danced on her tongue, the desire to wipe the smug, condescending smirk off Steffi's face burning intensely within her. Yet, exhibiting a newfound, calculated restraint, Hope bit her tongue, choosing to hold her fire. She allowed Steffi to continue basking in her false sense of absolute authority, knowing that the element of surprise would make her eventual departure all the more devastating. However, that temporary silence is destined to shatter. As Tuesday dawns, Hope's patience completely evaporates. The agonizing realization that Steffi will never truly value her contributions pushes Hope over the edge, setting the stage for a confrontation that will forever alter the landscape of the Los Angeles fashion industry. The tragedy of this impending corporate explosion is that it was entirely predictable and entirely preventable. Carter Walton, operating as the moral and legal oracle of Forrester Creations, has desperately tried to avert this disaster. He has sat down with both Ridge and Steffi, looking them in the eye and delivering a prophetic, dire warning about the catastrophic consequences of their recent executive decisions. Carter understands the delicate ecosystem of the company. He knows that continuously alienating a core talent like Hope, while simultaneously engaging in a bitter feud with the ascendant Logan brand, is a recipe for institutional suicide. He explicitly warned them that their dictatorial leadership style and their failure to respect Hope's legacy would inevitably drive her straight into the arms of their fiercest competitors. Yet, Carter's impassioned pleas have fallen on deaf ears. Steffi, insulated by her own ambition and her deep-seated animosity toward the Logans, is far too stubborn to heed his counsel. She dismisses Carter's warnings as overly dramatic, convinced that her iron-fisted approach is the only way to maintain the purity and dominance of the Forrester name. Ridge, historically passive when it comes to the fierce conflicts between his daughter and his wife's family, has similarly chosen to bury his head in the sand, hoping the tension will magically dissipate. Their collective refusal to listen to reason is setting the stage for a mass exodus of talent. If Hope leaves, taking her massive following and her dedicated team with her, who will be the next designer to walk out the door? Deke Sharp is already waiting in the wings, and the creative drain could leave Forrester Creations a hollow shell of its former glory. As the week progresses, the emotional wreckage caused by these intertwined conflicts will become impossible to ignore. Melissa Dillon's desperate struggle to survive Remy Price's sinister blackmail will test the limits of her morality, forcing her to navigate a treacherous path between self-preservation and betrayal. R.J. Forrester's obsessive need to control and protect Electra will create a toxic environment that blinds them both to the true dangers lurking in the shadows, while Spencer watches from the sidelines, his genuine love overshadowed by R.J.'s manipulative narrative. And in the glittering, high-stakes world of executive fashion, Hope Logan Spencer is preparing to drop a nuclear bomb on Steffi Forrester Finnegan's carefully constructed empire, proving once and for all that a woman pushed to her absolute limit is the most dangerous force of all. The battle lines have been permanently drawn, the warnings have been tragically ignored, and the fallout